Hello everyone, and peace be with all the good people out there. Welcome back. If you have watched anything of mine before, specifically this from this series, and if this is your first video, welcome to you. So we are going over the history of Eritrea using the magnificent book Eritrea, Root Causes of War and Refugees by Mr. Walde Jesus Ammar, a pioneer of the Eritrean Revolution and a participant in the Eritrean Revolution, of course. A legendary man who published this text in 1992. If you want to learn about Eritrean history, specifically when it comes to the revolution and even about how Eritrea came to be, this is the book to begin with, in my opinion. This is the book that made me proud to be to have origins in the land now known as Eritrea. I don't agree with the name. I don't like the name. Not because I don't like the word itself, but because I don't like who it's associated with, and those are the Italians. That's why. That's what I disagree with, and that's every Eritrean should share this same sentiment when it comes to the name. Because Italy is anyway. Let's talk about. We'll talk about all this in the series using the text. So last we spoke, we went over the introduction. We completed the introduction even, and we talked about how Eritreans fought for because of their they fought for their inalienable rights, their inalienable right to self-determination. Ethiopia fought because it believed that Eritrea belonged to it. In essence, that's what it was. They believed they were fighting for an ancient state. But there were other factors that Mr. Walde Jesus mentioned, such as global, regional, and rather geopolitical, strategic, and socioeconomic interests of global, regional, and local actors. So there were other factors involved. We spoke about the Eritreans and their having left Eritrea due to the war as refugees, being spread out across the world throughout 40 countries. We spoke about the many people who died. We talked about how Ethiopia became the poorest country in the world, partly because of the war on Eritrea. We spoke about also. We touched on the word Habasha and what it means. We spoke about how the people of Habasha Habasha did not want. They were reluctant, rather, or found it less easy to cut their umbilical cord with the old Habasha, Abyssinia. We went over what the word means, what its origin is. We spoke about how those who were non-Muslims, non-Christian non-Highlanders, who have few unifying factors, we spoke about how they pretty much sidelined, or they didn't trust the Christian Highlanders. They found that segment to be untrustworthy, and it led to a problem because an integration problem. So Eritreans were not, and I would say, to be honest, even until now, they're not truly united, and they're not, and the national unity of Eritrea was not there, and integration was integration was basically hindered. It was hindered because of this. We'll learn more about that in the series. So the claims have been made. We will see what backs up these claims. Today, or in this session, this discussion, we're going we're going to be on part 1. We're going to start with part 1, the evolution of an Eritrean identity. This will be pretty interesting. It's all interesting. So, the evolution of an Eritrean identity. Before anything, I begin in the name of God, the compassionate, the merciful. I praise and I glorify him as he ought to be praised and glorified. So, an historical perspective, or a historical perspective. Chapter 1. At the present time, many have been made aware of a reality called Eritrea, which engaged itself in a long armed conflict against Ethiopia. But this reality did not exist from the beginning of time, just like I've been telling you guys. This reality did not exist from the beginning of time. Like almost all colonial entities, modern Eritrea was created by European colonialism only a century ago. As one close observer of the territory and its peoples put it, as one close observer of the territory and its peoples put it, Italy created Eritrea by an act of surgery, by severing its different peoples from those with whom their past had been linked, and by grafting and the amputated remnants to each other under the title of Eritrean. This observer is G.K.N. Travaskis, another famous, well-known figure when it comes to the topic of Eritrea, maybe Ethiopia as well. In his text, Eritrea, a Colony in Transition, 1941 to 1952, Oxford UP, 1960, pages 10 to 11. So someone might say, why is he talking about our affairs? Why is he talking about Eritrea? The guy is an observer. People observe us. This is what they do. This is what people who are sadly what people do when it comes to third world countries, less developed countries. They observe us. Okay, they observe us. The way, National Geographic, they observe animals. This is what they do with us. This is what they do with us. We don't think about these things. But this is how it is. People observe us, they watch us, and then they write books about us. We write books about ourselves too, but it seems like they're the ones who do a lot of work because they come from the developed areas where thinking culture exists. We come from an area where thinking culture could exist, but we choose, a lot of people choose to fight over petty things. This is why we migrate to, or our families migrate to places where they can have a peace of mind. This is a sad truth. People do observe us. They observe us. Don't you see how on National Geographic and other programs, they'll show African women naked? The breasts are showing they're naked. Why is that okay? But then to show other women is on television or in magazines. It's like it's taboo. They cover what? Because isn't it obvious? Because they don't even blur it or anything. Because they view this. They may refuse. They may reject. In their minds, I would not be surprised that they view the people from certain areas as a kind of savage. This is why. Don't tell me that, but Sammy, an old Roman and Greek statues, these are old, ancient Roman and Greek statues. They don't mean anything anymore. They're just a historical relic that you can look at and say, oh, wow, interesting. And then it's not modern time. So Italy created Eritrea by an act of surgery, by severing its different peoples from those with whom their past had been linked, and by grafting the amputated remnants to each other under the title of Eritrean. What does that mean? It means that the Afar were once a united group of people, correct? Higdef's like, no, that's a long time ago. The river, I don't know if the river Merab goes that far, but the Afar are a connected people. So, but they got amputated because of colonialism. Same with the Kunama. Same thing. I don't know about the Saho, but the Beja groups between the Sudan and Eritrea. Also, the Afar from the Djibouti side, severed and then grafted, grafting the amputated remnants to each other under the title Eritrean. This is what it was. It became a nation state. This is not a situation unique to modern Eritrea. The literature on European colonialism in Africa and parts of Asia is an ample testimony of the mindless fragmentation of peoples and regions to form colonial boundaries and eventually states. They were formed, first they were colonial boundaries, then they became states. For instance, the Somalis were divided into 5 parts. Every Somali will attest to this. 5 parts. 5. Not 1, not 2, not 5. But which 5? Why are you being so emphatic, Mr. Sammy? Because French Somaliland, British Somaliland, and Italian Somaliland. Other Somali clans inhabited British Kenya and Ethiopia. A large piece of land that belongs to Somali people went one way, separated. Another one, separate. Another one, separate. The only smaller one is Djibouti. But other than that, look at Ethiopia. If you were to remove Ethiopia's horn, that's Somali. That's the Somali region, which they call the Ogaden region. The Somali region. If you were to remove that, Ethiopia would lose its horn. It would be like a kind of pear-looking nation. Like a pear. It looks similar to a pear. Something like a pear. Like a fruit, the pear fruit. British Kenya and Ethiopia. A local power which expanded its territories tenfold during the late 19th century European scramble for Africa. As one Ethiopian author said in 1975, even Ethiopia's existence as a modern state does not actually extend far beyond the 19th century, which is true. Ethiopia's existence as a modern state does not actually extend far beyond the 19th century. Addis Hiwat, Ethiopia, From Autocracy to Revolution, London, Review of African Political Economy, 1975, page 1. Doesn't extend far beyond this Ethiopia that we know today. This is does not extend beyond the 19th century. So when you say ancient Ethiopia, what are you talking about? Do you mean Aksum? Do you mean, what are you referring to? Land that was stolen from Agos in the 15th century, perhaps? Rather from the 13th until 15th to 16th centuries? What Ethiopia are you speaking of? They make it look like it's this legend, this epic, this place of great virtue that existed since and it involved the story of the Queen of Sheba and Solomon, peace be upon them both. It existed since that time, or at least since then, and it's the holy place of Ethiopia. And then you see that it has these colors, which I believe have something to do with, I believe their origins have something to do with Christianity. The red and orange and green, and the red and yellow and green, sorry. You should think of, anyway, so this is Ethiopia. Rastafarian culture and all this. A lot of it, this is, you want to fool the world? Mengistu Haile Mariam did away with the kingdom, and then he built a toilet on top of Haile Selassie's corpse. Someone who's a Marxist, socialist, extremist, crazy guy did that. If I'm not mistaken, Ethiopians believe in the Orthodox Christians, or at least the kings. If I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong. They believe in divine rule. It's divine. Of course, these things can happen to anyone. But the thing is, they fooled people. Deception. This is deception. I hate deception. That's why I prefer to use sources. I'm not just sitting down and talking to you guys and telling you guys, well, you know what, guys, I heard this and I heard that and this is what happened. And we could do that, but I like to use the texts to go back so that you can go back and do your own research and think. That's what the purpose of this channel is, as I've said in other videos, in different series. In any case, so the Eritrean nationalists claim that a separate Eritrean entity could be traced several centuries back is as untenable as Ethiopia's territorial claim over modern Eritrea. This is what I mean when I say I'm against modern Eritrean nationalism. Modern Eritrean nationalism. What do I mean by this? I mean what Mr. Walde Jesus just said. The Eritrean nationalists claim that a separate Eritrean entity could be traced several centuries back is as untenable as Ethiopia's territorial claim over modern Eritrea. It's not true. Yet I've spoken to I've met people, I think Higdefs, they say that, oh, you know, they think Eritrea existed since the beginning of time. That's not true. Then they tell you they're against colonialism and they're against all forms of imperialism, but then they're promoting the Italians more than the Italians promoted themselves. Ironically. But one thing is certain. Since 1890, the grafted remnants that came under the title of Eritrean underwent considerable historical changes during the 51 years of Italian colonialism. Colonialism. The grafted remnants that came under the title of Eritrean underwent considerable historical changes during the 51 years of Italian colonialism, 11 years of British occupation, 10 years of quasi-federal relationship with Ethiopia, and finally 30 solid years of armed struggle provoked by Ethiopia's flagrant violation of the federal arrangement. They violated it. So we said what? 51 years of Italian colonialism, plus 11 years of British occupation. Let's do some math. 51 plus 11, 62. So 62 years. Plus 10 years of quasi-federal relationship, 72. Plus finally 30 solid years of armed struggle, 102. Provoked by Ethiopia's flagrant violation of the federal arrangement. Now, since this was written, published in 1992, we have to add that 102 plus plus the 31 years that Isaias has been in power, if I'm not mistaken. 31 years. So 102 plus 31, we have 133 years of hell. These are the main stages to be dealt with in studying the evolution of Eritrean identity and consciousness. However, the pre-1890 period is not without its imprints, albeit faint, on Eritrea's historical evolution. So, again, however, the pre-1890 period, before 1890, the pre-1890 period is not without its imprints, albeit faint, on Eritrea's historical evolution. So the pre-1890 situation did have an effect, or had contributed to Eritrea's historical evolution. The Ethiopians had been raising not quite justifiable claims over Eritrea based on ancient history. They had been raising not quite justifiable claims over Eritrea based on ancient history, while the Eritrean nationalists countered them by conjuring up symbolisms and historical references only applicable to parts of the territory that later made up today's Eritrea. So the Ethiopians made up fake stories. The Eritreans, not all of them, the Eritreans did the same. They did the same. Not all the Eritreans. But Eritrean nationalists countered them by conjuring up symbolisms and historical references only applicable to parts of the territory that later made up today's Eritrea. Mr. Walde Jesus is objective, to the point, telling you like it is. This is a true revolutionary. In my last, when we were going over Dr. Alam Sagad Abbai's The Historical Orbit of Eritrea's Agony, I believe I mentioned a true revolutionary is one who is humble and tells it to you like it is. Humble, tells it to you like it is, with an honest heart, honest, he's honest with himself and honest to the truth, honest to the facts, honest with what he has read, honest with what he understands. That's Walde Jesus. That's Mr. Walde Jesus. He doesn't just throw Eritrea in your face and that's it. It's in your face and shut up. No. He's going to tell it to you like it is, how it is, why it is, what it is, where it is. We'll end this particular discussion here, but we will continue with Eritrea before 1890. I think it would be good to do that since, yeah, it would be good to do that. We can, I would prefer that I keep my discussions shorter. Sometimes, though, they call for longer, more time. In any case, we'll end it here, and I'll see you guys after this discussion. Always keep safe. Peace be with you. And thanks for watching.